Whether it's young or old, making a difference and having a purpose is important for every generation. The hierarchies are being flattened and communication needs to improve, and technology is just speeding that process. I think greatness is an individual or a team are doing the best that they can, and then just a little bit more.
Thank you for being here, Ty.
My pleasure.
It's going to be great. It's a wonderful feeling to actually do a one-on-one with you. And let me start by, to make it easy, let me start by asking a question, a very open-ended question. So could you give me a brief on your background, the way your journey's moved on, your career as far as that is concerned, over and above O.C.Tanner, so the last 15 years at O.C.Tanner and even beyond? What's the journey like?
That is not an easy question because it has been a crazy journey. I started in manufacturing, production equipment, making computer chips while I was going to college, and ended up in production management, asset engineering, and then went to another company to do document control, where I ended up in purchasing as a buyer, and then a purchasing manager, and then a supply chain director, and then an HR director for 6 months. Who would have thought? And then I took over operations. That's when I became a vice president. And then I took over global operations, which led me to international, which led me to O.C.Tanner. So I've spent the last almost 15 years at O.C.Tanner running the international side of the business.
It's an amazing journey in the terms of the experiences.
A weird journey.
Unique.
Yeah, unique.
Unique journey. And what I can think of here is, do you think the different roles that you played all along, did your leadership style change? How you influenced people or you led teams?
I'm not sure that it was a conscious decision. I'm not sure that I'm a brilliant manager or anything, but just naturally, you know, when you're leading a production team or a maintenance team, it's a little more active management with a little more tighter, it's a little tighter time frame with a little closer goals. I guess my management style has changed a little bit in that I'm less focused on the detail now and more focused on the big picture objectives. But hopefully my concern for people has not changed.
What, according to you, is greatness?
I think greatness is when an individual or a team are doing the best that they can, and then just a little bit more. When they think they're doing their best and then they do just a little bit better, that's great. So for me, it's not an individual measurement. It's not. Sometimes we tend to achieve the things that we measure. You know, we tend to measure sales growth or profitability or efficiency or mean time between calls, or, you know, it depends on the team.
In your career, like, were there certain ups and downs and you came through because you got influenced by a leader you had in your organization?
The example I think of, the leader that inspired me, was my wife. I worked at a company where we got a new CEO, and I didn't fit in his plans for the future of the company, so he fired me. So that was a bit of a dark day. I remember walking in the door to our house, and I felt terrible. I didn't know how I was going to support my family or how I was going to take care of everyone. And my wife, Heather, was in the kitchen, and I walked in and I was very dejected, and I said to Heather, honey, I just got fired. And I'll never forget her response, because she turned to me and smiled and said, that's great. I wonder where we'll end up next. And that just took all the weight off my shoulders. It was just her reaction of just having confidence in me and confidence in us and confidence in our family, and it just made the concern go away. So for me, the example of leadership came from my wife. She made me confident that things would be okay, that times were tough, but we'd get through it.
So what do you think your strengths are when it comes to influencing greatness?
I think I can get out of the way.
Or
I think what has proven effective for me is to try and communicate openly and set clear objectives. But then really to influence greatness, I think the most important thing is to help move things out of the way so that people can achieve greatness. My job is more to help people be successful. And I do that mostly by trying to communicate a lot and set clear objectives and hold people accountable and all of those things. But I think mostly what I do is just try and help them be successful. I think influencing greatness is creating a path that those people can walk down and making the path easier for them.
there are certain things which are don'ts to succeed in the corporate world. And more often than not, have you seen those mistakes being done by people unknowingly?
Well, I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind. I've been most successful when I focused on the success of others and not on my own success. I think I would tell a new manager, sometimes we get so caught up in trying to do things that make ourselves look good, or try and say things just the right way, or focus on the next promotion. And I did the same thing. At times, I was focused on me, what was best for me. And those were the times I was least successful. So I guess I would tell a new manager that to be successful, they really ought to focus on the success of others. When the team is successful, they're naturally going to be successful. I have found that if you focus on the success of your teams, if you focus on helping others be successful, it's the best way for you to be successful.
So the common thread in another answer that you had was that people genuinely know if you care for them or you don't care.
Yeah.
And I think again, selflessness is aligned to that principle again to an extent, where you trying to say that you put the success of others in front of you and you need to care for them.
Yeah, but you can't fake it. When people try and fake caring, everyone knows they're faking. You can't fake caring for people. If you don't care, then practice caring. Because it can't be fake. It has to be genuine. Or you need to find a different environment to work in. Or maybe you're not cut out to be a manager or a leader. But in today's world, unless you genuinely care about the success of others, you're not going to be very successful.
Yeah, I remember the statement that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh, good one.
And I so agree with that, because I think you really just have to move out of the way, like you said, so they go ahead and succeed. Because once they know you care for them, you're providing what it takes, and you just move out of the way. It's
Yeah.
a great point.
In fact, I use an Indian example in my travels. I use an example of Gandhi because he's one of my heroes, like Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King. And he's one of my heroes because service was more important to him than power. And he ended up influencing billions of people for generations. We use the example in the US of George Washington. He was our first president, and he could have been king. If you put it up for a vote,
Okay.
people would have voted for him to be king. But he didn't think of himself,
Right.
he thought of others. So I used Gandhi and Washington to kind of show what real leadership looks like. Real leadership looks like you care more for others than about yourself. You care more for serving than you do for power. And I think in a corporate environment, if we care more for others than we do ourselves, we're going to end up being successful.
So thank you.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, thank you, Zubin. It's always a pleasure.